Hello and thank you for joining us at Team PI Pokemon. We are going through our third installment of the complete Sun and Moon Burning Shadows set review. Notable highlights in the first two videos do include Golisopod GX. I think that's probably the standout Pokemon that's been released and printed in this Burning Shadows set for grass Pokemon. We have Ho-Oh GX. Ho-Oh GX really does give something a little bit different to fire types because we actually have a different weakness in the form of lightning. So that should be quite interesting to see how that figures. I've seen one or two fire decks that have featured a single one of those. So we should have to wait and see. Alolan Ninetales features in the water Pokemon, and we also have Tapu Fini GX. I would just wish that it had a little more bite than 120 for Hydro Shot. And that took us through pretty much our first video. In our second video, not really anything from the lightning Pokemon within the set. Necrozma GX, however, is a real standout for the Psychic Pokemon with its attack of Black Ray. 100 on the bench Pokemon, and also Prismatic Burst, which is a completely colourless attack. Could look good for Metagross GX decks going into the new format post Worlds. We then covered fighting Pokemon. Really, nothing really anything to write home about in terms of Machamp GX. Huge disappointment with that GX. Just wish it had something, an attack maybe from a previous set to knock out basic Pokemon with a single fighting. I'm just thinking about that. Lycanroc's going to find some niche play with Lycanroc decks that want to try and get around Alolan Ninetales, the baby version. And we got Marshadow GX, which I am quite excited about. Definitely got a play set of that. So today we start with the Darkness Pokemon now. I'll just bring that on the carousel. And now the Darkness Pokemon, there are some really exciting Pokemon that do feature on there. I'm particularly pleased to see how Weavile has made its re-entry into this set. The really interesting attack that takes on Pokemon with abilities. So without any further ado, let's go straight into it, with our first Pokemon being Alolan Rattata. Now, Alolan Rattata, Focus Energy, it's interesting because it was easy to power this up on the pre-release, but at the same time, I'm afraid to say 40 HP was never ever anything to rely on. So I managed to get maybe a couple of 60s off with Alolan Rattata right at the end, maybe a cleaner Pokemon, but that's only really for the pre-releases and pre-releases. I don't see Alolan Rattata making that much of an impact. Got Alolan Raticate, Enhanced Fang with no attack cost whatsoever. If it has a Pokemon call attached to it, this attack does 50 more damage. Quite interesting, because if you attached a Choice Band to it, it would actually hit out for 90 for no energy whatsoever. That's quite interesting, but unfortunately it's got a 3 retreat cost as well. So once you're committed to attacking with Alolan Raticate, that's it. Hyper Fang for 60, flip a coin if tails this attack does nothing, and cause huge disappointments if you decide to play it at sealed. We got the Alolan Grimer. Now that's another Alolan Grimer. I think the first one was a couple of sets ago. We've got search your deck for Alolan Grimer and put it onto your bench and shuffle your deck. Great if you have to start with it. Not so good if you actually go first. But the other Alolan Grimer actually has a poison condition associated with it. Slippery Sludge. 2 colorless, your opponent's active Pokemon is now confused. Just in case you never actually made it up to Alolan Muck. Now, Alolan Muck received a fair bit of attention, I have to say, because in a couple of the sneak previews that we received, it did receive quite a little bit of hype. Now, I will be honest, I'm not entirely certain as to where to go with Alolan Muck. Now, I'll explain this. You got Tri-Hazard, which is a cost-free attack. Switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active Pokemon. The new active Pokemon is now burnt, paralyzed, and poisoned, which sounds great because it combines brilliantly with Chemical Breath. This attack does 70 more damage for each special condition affecting your opponent's active Pokemon. So think about it. You got 3 special conditions. That's 220 base damage, 250 if you actually manage to get a Choice Band onto a GX. It can take out any GX. With second attack, Crunch, discard an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. It's kind of like subpar compared to Chemical Breath. And you just don't think that 120 can really punch it in this format at this moment in time. It's got a hefty 4 retreat cost as well. So I don't think it really is something that you really want to bring up to 4 energy. The reason why is because of Gardevoir GX. So if you've got 4 energy and Gardevoir's at least got maybe 1 or 2 by that stage, it's 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180. It's pretty close to the 220 mark. So by the time you try and get it up to Crunch, realistically, a Gardevoir is actually going to be knocking you out at the same time. If we also think about Crunch discarding an energy, I think with Gardevoir in the same set, I don't think you're actually going to get that much of an effect because you actually have Gardevoir's ability, as we're going to see very soon. Being able to place a fairy right back onto the active Pokemon. But I'm really not sure about this. The only other thing as well is that you've actually got Guzma in the format as well. So, okay, well, fair enough. You could combine it with Salazzle. Salazzle would put 2 status conditions on there. The problem is that if you are playing Salazzle yourself, you're really susceptible to an opponent's Garbatox and Garbodor. So Garbatox and Garbodor would then shut down that strategy, and you'd really be pushed to try and find your own field blower for that. It's not impossible, but it is there, and it's something that you'd have to think about if you were indeed going to be playing about with Alolan Muck. I think it's a fun deck. I think you could add a couple of Survivors just to bring additional poison damage. If you really wanted to play about with things like Sleep, you could use Hypno. You didn't really want to use All Night Party to work around Sleep on your side because perhaps your opponent can actually benefit from that as well, and it would. But at the same time, if you used it yourself, you could heal your own Sleep. So I'm not too sure. We're kind of like now crowding our bench. We've got to be realistic on this one. It looks great on paper, but I don't really think it's positioned in a really good position at this moment in time, because Guzma, above all else, has been released in the set, making the whole issue of status conditions that much of a lower value strategy to take in a game. I don't really think that Alolan Muck is actually going to be able to, at this moment in time, have that much of an impact on the metagame as a result. Sneasel's one of my favourite Pokemon, I have to say, all the way back from Neo Genesis. Enjoyed using Beat Up. During your next turn, this Pokemon's slash attack base damage is 80, so great in the pre-releases. What's also really fun is Rule of Evil. Rule of Evil is really, really cool, because you actually have this attack doing 20 damage to each Pokemon that has an ability. Now the problem is that it will actually do 60 damage to your own Pokemon. Now, if there's a way in which you can try and get around that, protecting your own Pokemon from damage, from your own damage, you have to read the wording really, really carefully on these things. If that's something that is possible to do, then you've got yourself a really, really interesting card that could see some play. It just reminds me of, one of the in the past there used to be a legend pairing of cards. So basically, if you had both cards down in your hand, you could place both cards down. It was like one half and another half of a Pokemon. That particular Pokemon was actually Entei and Raikou Legend. Actually did 80 damage to anything with a Poke Power, but I don't really think that Rule of Evil is something that you can just rely on again and again and again. And the reason being that 90 HP isn't just really that strong. I love the fact that it's got free retreat. If your opponent cannot do anything, if they've, for example, got something very, very heavy that's active, it's and they can't retreat and they're down to a couple of hands, you could actually do something really, really cool with it. But good players will not necessarily put down their Pokemon, that many Pokemon with abilities at the same time, and at the end of the day, some decks don't actually have that many abilities at all to take advantage of, so that would actually put a real issue with your strategy. So, as much as I love Weavile, and as much as I'm hesitant about it, I'm afraid to say Weavile, I don't think you're going to have that much of an impact in the meta at the moment. Moving on to Darkrai. Darkrai is interesting because if you are playing Darkrai GXs, you will need something to try and get around Alolan Ninetales, the baby version. You got Dark Raid if your opponent has already used their GX attack. This attack does 80 more damage, and 80 kind of sucker punches Alolan Ninetales. I think it's a great addition. There is another version of Darkrai that is in the game at the moment, and it is a version that was actually released in one of the mythical Pokemon collections. So I'd be hard put to choose between the two different Darkrai's if I really was a Darkrai fan and I needed to put some Darkrai in to cover that Achilles heel of Alolan Ninetales GX. I think without a GX attack having been played, however, Darkrai isn't really that strong a Pokemon at all. So I would just max out on a one-off if at all. The interesting thing was that Darkrai was actually revealed when the set actually hit PTCGO as a Pokemon League promo, so it will actually be released through Pokemon Leagues. Moving on to Darkrai GX, Restoration is actually a really interesting card. It's one of the most hyped cards coming into this set. I think it's probably second to Gardevoir GX and just ahead of Golisopod, only but for the fact that in this moment in time coming into the Worlds format, you've actually got Flareon still from Ancient Origins able to tackle Golisopod, and I really like Darkrai GX. I've tried out Darkrai GX Fun decks on PTCGO. The really interesting Darkrai GX deck that I was playing this morning, where my opponent was playing Darkrai GX and Salazzle, which was really cool because my Tapu Leles were being affected by burn and poison, and I could just basically have them knocked out, obviously with Dead End GX. But Dark Cleave, let's think about it. Dark Cleave, if you put a Fighting Fury Belt on Darkrai GX, the base damage for Dark Cleave is 140. With Burn being automated, it is 160, and then in between turns, you've actually got Poison, which is 170. Enough to take out a Tapu Lele GX. Needless to say, I actually lost that game. I'm really, really impressed with Darkrai GX in combination. However, I can't imagine Darkrai GX doing very well if you are up against a deck with Garbatox and Garbodor. Unfortunately, Garbodor will actually just ruin the party for that one. I think Restoration may see some play at this moment in time while it's still allowed in decks like Mega Rayquaza, Mega Gardevoir EX, perhaps. Until perhaps the rotation takes place. You've also got Sudowoodo that can actually counter this. You've got Parallel City, which I think is going to be on the rise in terms of popularity as we go into the new format. I think that because there's a lot of games that I am finding at this moment in time testing with the new format that start to clutter your bench with things like Tapu Lele. So look out for a rise and a spike in popularity again with Parallel City. Thinking expanded, Darkrai GX also has some great life. I think Yveltal EX will probably go back to thinking about maybe a model using hypnotoxic lasers. I can definitely see Darkrai GX doing really, really well in that format, especially with Dark Patch doing so well in expanded. I also think that Restoration is something that allows you to set up chains of Darkrai GXs, especially if you play something like Max Elixirs and your regular Darkrai EXs. Definitely look out for that. Someone's actually going to make a great deck with Darkrai GX, I think, in the near future. Inky, sorry Inky, nothing to write home about. Paralysis on the flip and tackle for 20, just can't do it. Malamar, your opponent's active Pokemon is now automatically confused. Energy Slosh for 70. You can move all your energy from this Pokemon to one of your bench Pokemon. I'm not quite sure as to how you would actually then recover. You would only be able to attach an energy per turn, perhaps, normally, and just go straight into a Psybeam, and it would be heavily reliant on double colourless energy. So, sorry Malamar, just can't have that sustainable in this format. Let's move on to one of the prettiest Pokemons. It is indeed Ralts. Now, I think Ralts needs to evolve as quickly as possible, especially with Draining Kiss. Needs to evolve as quickly as possible to Curlier, and then you need to evolve it as quickly as possible to arguably the best card in this set, and it is Gardevoir GX. 230 HP, very, very hefty. It is actually forcing a lot of people to reconsider, consider one of the trainers in this set, Potam, which we will be reviewing very shortly. The ability Secret Spring, I cannot stress how much energy can hit the board, especially with 1 or 2 Gardevoirs just out. It is absolutely phenomenal. You'll actually realise you'll actually find a point where you just simply haven't got enough energy to just put on the board. Infinite Force is an absolutely amazing attack. It does one better than Mewtwo EX, whereas it will only actually do it will do 30 times, which is the same as Mewtwo. For a type that's not necessarily going to be weak to itself as well. Mewtwo is of course weak to Psychic, so round about the Mewtwo time, when Mewtwo's popularity started to spike, you had kind of like a Mewtwo war virtually. You've got Infinite Force, which is fired up by 1 energy, which is amazing. Twilight GX is absolutely astounding. It's such a clever move by the game designers to put a real cap on the use of Garbodor. Now we actually have a way in which to counter Garbodor Trash Lance decks, shuffling 10 cards from your discard pile into your deck. So even if you were to burn through pretty much all of your main items to find everything, all the pieces that you needed for Gardevoir EX, you just recycle them back in, and with very little, if any, impact on your game. I'd be really, really, really surprised if Gardevoir GX doesn't reach the top level of decks at some point in the near future. It's the built-in ability. It's the fact that it's not relying on any other pieces. You can just go straight with Gardevoir and go for some really big swing attacks, and it's limitless as well. Lots of lists are sort of a little bit anonymous at this stage because of the build up towards Worlds. I'd definitely think about maybe 8 to 9 energies, 8 to 9 basic energies, along with double Colourless as well. I think. I definitely think that this is something that you want to stock up on. It's the most priciest of the GXs in the set. I think there's some really, really cool features that are in store for Gardevoir. We just have to wait and see. Definitely the best deck in format. Best card in the set. And arguably the best deck in format. We shall see afterwards. Diancie, great as a supporter to try and get your Gardevoirs up and running. Look at that. Sparkling Wish, circle your deck for a card that evolves from one of your Pokemon. Could be any one of your Pokemon as well. Don't just think it's just for Fairy. Diamond Storm, I suppose, at a push. 30, maybe 60 if you've got a choice band, so it's not too bad. But Sparkling Wish is definitely the highlight of that. It's only 1 retreat cost as well, which is actually really cool. I like its text as well. The sudden transformation of Carbing, its pink glimmering body, is said to be the loveliest sight in the whole world. Isn't that great? Cutiefly, great free retreat, but Fairy Wind for 10. It does evolve to a Ribombee, but many people will actually just prefer to have a Professor's Letter. I don't think it's really worth having a Cutiefly in your deck, because I think it would just be too vulnerable at 30 HP. Honeygather, however, I don't know. Maybe, just maybe, if you're building a fun version of Gardevoir, you can actually have Ribombee and force a 7 prize game. I don't think Ribombee is going to be that significant. Morlul, you've got another Morlul now. You've got this Morlul, and you've got the Grass Morlul from Sun and Moon as well in the Sun and Moon sets. Shinotic is interesting. I'm seeing too many Shinotics come out from my packs. Strength Sap, even 30 heal for this Pokemon, 30 damage times the amount of energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. The only thing is that Shinotic's got 100 HP, so there's only a certain distance that you can actually take Shinotic. It's got Steep Pulse for 60. I can't see it being worth the space, to be honest. Okay, we're going to move on now to discussing Neuven. Neuven GX was actually rejected by a lot of early players, and as a result, you know, when the sneak cards, the sneak previews came out, Noivern was kind of like, well, actually, we're going to lose Double Dragon, so is it really worth it? Noivern's GX's price then suddenly dropped within the first week or so of Burning Shadows and Burning Shadows release, and Noivern has now started to get a little bit of attention because of Distort. Your opponents can't play any items card from their hand during their next turn. This is stage 1. It's not a stage 2. It's a stage 1. So it is feasible to actually bring up Noivern as an attacker. And let's just think about it. Distort has actually got the same attack as Seismitoad EX. Seismitoad EX was absolutely dominant. So I actually think before Worlds, certainly, I think perhaps people are starting to test out Noivern. Definitely starting to grab them online and on the forums. They're definitely trying to give some serious attention to Noivern. People may have actually found a little crack in the metagame that could actually make the most of it. Now, could it work in maybe a Darkrai GX deck? Who knows? Could be seeing that. The only thing that I dislike about Noivern is the fact that it has a fairy type weakness. Obviously, if you were up against a Gardevoir, you would not be seeing any kind of Noivern or Noibat as on your bench, because you just don't want to lose 2 prizes so easily and so readily. But it's great to see that there is a free retreat to this one as well. So I can definitely see something like a 1-1 or a 2-2, you know, just sneaking in and securing a game right at the end. Maybe maybe it might be worthwhile. However, if you are trying to lock your opponent's heavy retreat Pokemon, we do have Guzma. I mean, that's pretty much a catchphrase of this set. There is Guzma out. So jury's out, I think, with Noivern. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it become a little more popular. I can't help but forget the impact of Quaking Punch. You can power it up with a Double Dragon energy. It does do 20 more damage than its predecessor. You also have its GX attack. We haven't even mentioned its GX attack, Boom Burst. This attack does 50 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. A nice big spread that you could have in combination with Tapu Koko promo. Sonic Volume. Your opponent can't play any special energy cards from their hand during their next turn, which is the best bit about Giratina EX's attack. So it's quite an interesting card. I'd love to see Noivern do much better than many people are actually predicting it to do. But with Gardevoir GX in the format at this moment in time, I'm afraid to say it's not something that I am looking at this moment. Moving on to Zygarde Land Crush for 80, a nice vanilla type attack. 80, great in the pre-releases, but again, I just have to look at that weakness, and I'm thinking it's just so susceptible to Gardevoir GX. So we're going to move on. Horrible retreat cost, I have to say. And we're going to move on to the colourless Pokemon now. So we got Fake Out from Meowth. I'm sorry, Meowth, it's just not strong enough. A lot of people did like to play about with Persian at the pre-releases. They would just use Slash, maybe, for 100 for 1 energy. Not quite certain how secure you could have, how secure a strategy would be if you were to just have Screech and hope that the opposing defending Pokemon stays in its position, because guess what? Guzma is in the format as well. Porygon going up to Porygon 2. No, not really very impressive attacks there. Calculate, perhaps a bit niche for a pre-release, you know, but you really wanted to try and get attacks off as fast as possible. Porygon Z, well, is a very expensive way of getting the evolution Pokemons back into your opponent's hand. I have to say, more often than not, Espeon EX is probably the better option, with a colourless attack that devolves everything that your opponent has. So I would pretty much go for Porygon Z as being in the binder rather than in my deck. Hoo Hoot, we've got some wonderful Hoo Hoot fans. Not necessarily being disappointed, but I have to say the previous version of Hoo Hoot with the item lock was so much better. Although you get to see your opponent's hand, which is amazing anyway, because it's Hoo Hoot. Evolving up to Noctowl, I liked Noctowl at the pre-release. Night Raid, your opponent reveals their hand, discard a Pokemon from it. It destroyed many decks at the pre-releases that I attended. Bouffalon was my highlight at the pre-release. Bouffant head 30 during your opponent's next turn. This Pokemon takes 30 less damage. It was just a huge machine to win over full prizes very quickly. You've also got Knockover, which is discard any stadium play. You got the basic of Noivern, which is Noibat. Again, you want to try and get that up and active as quickly as possible, and then bring it up to Noivern GX. You got Stuffle, Baby Doll Eyes. Again, you know, cute Pokemon. It's featured at Toys R Us promo if you spend a certain amount on cards. Beware was the pre-release Pokemon, which was Mix-Up. Flip a coin if heads, discard the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. Tantrum, this Pokemon is now confused. Again, I'm not quite sure as to how this would compare with the other Pokemon that are actually available in this set and in previous sets. I can't see Beware actually making an impact. That finishes off our review. I'm just going to flick through all of the full art versions because they're just so beautiful. Thank you very much for watching. The next installment that I'll be doing will be covering all of the trainers, all of the items, supporters and stadium cards that remain in this set. Thank you so much for your support. Please like and subscribe and share this video. We can't promote the game without people knowing that we are contributing towards the Pokemon community and having a wider impact. Please like, subscribe to our channel, share this video, and leave your comments in the boxes below. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great time playing this set.